Well, has the art of borrowing actually has become the part and parcel of your life? You get yourself always borrowing. You're actually employed, you get yourself some salary at the end of the day, or you're self-employed, but you never get out of the debts. Every time you ask yourself, oh the heck, what did I exactly do to my life? Because I always get myself into the debts and into borrowing. Now, this is the exact video that you're looking for, because do this exact thing and guess what? Never borrow again. And if you have to, then it will be you borrowing, not in a situation whereby you really have to desperately feed yourself. By the way, you know there are two types of borrowing. There are this individual who borrows because they do not have any option on top of their heads. They have nothing. They have to borrow, and they're borrowing to cater for their basic needs, like their school fees, they have to pay for their rent, they have to pay for their food, and all those basic needs. And there's another individual here who borrows, and this is what we call a good loan or a good debt. These guys, they just borrow because they want to supplement that what they have so that they can be able to invest and create another passive income. All right, so let's get into the business, okay, of borrowing or not borrowing, or what exactly can you do so that you never borrow again. Guess what, guys? I only want one return from you guys, just a single return. Which return? I usually share this information to you for free. I don't charge you nothing. The only thing I want is you to like this video, which doesn't cost you anything, and subscribe down below there. There is a small button written subscribe. Hit that magical button. And I know you're asking, what's the importance of that? The importance is whenever I upload a new good video, you get to be notified. Let's get into the business. Now, I've actually categorized, or I've actually outlined all the points that you ought to follow. Let's go to the point number one, is that categorize your things. Let me tell you one secret. The very, very, very first step that you ought to take so that you don't get yourself into the unhealthy debt is to categorize your things. Get what we call the wants and the needs. Okay, the wants, those are the things that we say, hey, they are good to have, or they're nice to have. But the needs, these are the things that you know that, hey, you cannot do away with them. Okay, you cannot do away with having a basic home. You cannot do away with having good food or food. You cannot do away with you not having what? A clothing, or should I say, things to cover yourself or something of sort. All right. So immediately when that salary comes in, even if it's small or big or however it is, whenever it comes in, first of all, the very primary thing that you're supposed to focus on is to catering for what? For your basic needs, okay? So once you categorize your things, because a lot of people usually have what we call created problems. By the way, there are two types of problems. We have the real existing problems and we have the created problems. The real existing problems and challenges, they are out there, but the created one is where you get yourself into a lifestyle that you cannot afford. You're taking your kids to a school that you cannot be able to afford, and if you have to afford, it's really costing you arm and length. Okay, they usually say arm and what? Arm and leg or something or sort. All right, like in simple terms, that it's costing you a lot of money. You are out there, you're trying to fake some lifestyle. You have to prove to some people you're living in a quite a leafy area, but you cannot even afford that specific place. Or if you can, then you're not saving even a dime. If you do not save, if you do not have that at least you set aside, you're gonna get yourself into borrowing. All right, so what did I say? Let me simplify the information. Categorize your things. Get your wants and get your needs. First of all, cater for the needs before you go to the wants. I know wants that are the ones that makes you happy. Fine. A situation comes whereby, especially right now in Kenya, depends on where the economy is. I'm not saying people should not happy or should not keep themselves happy, but it's good to make sure that at least, sometimes I always tell people, live in this life as if anything can happen, anything bad is happening. Sometimes I say, live as if you're paranoid or something of sort. Okay, let's get to the point number two, is that depopularize the consumer mindset. And this is where a lot of problems is actually coming from people. Depopularize the what? The consumer mindset. What exactly do I mean? Most of the people that we usually have, by the way, if you wouldn't believe, close to 75% of the clients that I usually receive at the sideline. By the way, you're wondering, how do I receive them? You can always give by call, or as you can call me. Actually, my number is always on the description of this specific video. I usually offer those services pertaining to money and investment. Anyway, over 70% of the clients that I usually get usually have what you call the consumer mindset. And they come to me innocently. They do not know. They tell me, hey, good Joseph, I actually receive, I do believe it's a good amount of money. And it's true, it's a good amount of money in terms of the salary and what have you. But I cannot be able to save. Whenever I do this, I don't know where my money goes and all those kind of things. And whenever I listen to them, because I love listening, whenever I listen to them, then I realize these people are being affected by the consumer mindset. And you know where this consumer mindset coming from? See, most of the people, let's speak the truth. Most of the people in our country usually come from the humble background. Now, right now, they are quite doing okay, but they come from the humble background. When you come from the humble background, you never experience some of the good things. So you grew up with this mentality like, hey, whenever I get money, I have to keep myself happy. I have to make sure that I get all that what I was missing. Some guys were telling me I used to love meat and we never used to have it. So whenever I get my money, I used to buy things. That guy usually consumes a lot of meat because where he came from. Okay. Now the point is this: like, you find these people usually say, I can't bring up my kids the way I was brought up. I'll give them the best lifestyle out there. So whenever you get money, you said, I'm gonna give my kids the best life there. There is nothing wrong with that. But the problem here is you do not have a boundary. You do not know when you're spilling over to that what is ought to keep your kids or maybe your family happy, and also that what has to be saved and invested for the future. Because those two things are quite important. Number one, making sure that your family is good. They are, taking them out and what have you. Actually, you are going to the holidaying season and what have you. They have to be happy. But at the same time, it's also true there is another basket ought to be filled. That's for investing and savings and what have you. However you're going to frame it, that's for a fact. So depopularize this mentality of consumer mindset and kind of a thing, because that is what affecting majority of the people's cash. Okay. Now, one thing that I'm supposed to understand, and I always tell people, money is always a tool to make more of it, not a product to be consumed. So if you get on board with this mentality of, hey, this money ought to be consumed, all those kind of things, you're gonna get yourself into lots of problems, right? So let's get to the third point. Now, the third point is that regular financial reviews. By the way, let me tell you one secret. If you want to get your marriage stay for longer period, get yourself what we call the financial, regular financial reviews. And let me tell you one secret. Over 75% of the marriages that usually broke or social life is usually affected by the finance. So if you can be able to take care of the finance, then rest assured you have actually solved close to 70% of your challenges and problems. Why? Because whenever you cannot be able to trace your money where it's going, you tend to think, hey, might it be the other partner that is actually misusing the money? Because from my end, I feel like I'm doing all what's ought to be done. You get the thing? So it's always good to make sure that even if you're living single, it's always good to make sure that you sit down with a pen and paper and trying to ask yourself, okay, well, fine, I usually pay like X amount of money in terms of my rent, or maybe I pay X amount of money in terms of my mortgage, or I usually channel this amount of money towards my fueling, I usually channel this amount of money to black tax, I usually pay this for the school fees, there is a debt that I'm repaying, and all those kind of things. It's always good to have what we call the financial reviews and ask yourself, okay, fine, the year is ending actually, we are now on November 2023, depends on when you're watching this video. Now the point is this, the year is actually ending. What exactly did I do? It's always good to make sure that you have your reviews. I usually make like a 50,000 at the end of the month. So if I was to take 50,000 multiplied by 12, that's quite a good amount of money. Now, what have I done? And I always tell people, if it is possible, make sure that at least you save, you catch up at every rate of 4 months, you catch up with 1 month. What do I mean? Let's say maybe you earn 40,000. It's always good to make sure that at least you save 10,000. So by the time you're clocking the 4th month, you've saved, that is equivalent to 1 month. So at a rate of 4, you capture 1. At a rate of 4, you capture 1. What does it mean? So if you were to take 12 months in an year, divide by 4, so meaning you got yourself 3 months. So if you're earning 40,000, you ought to have saved 120,000. Simple mathematics, but a bit complicated at the same time. Why? Because you require discipline, consistency, and what? Sacrifice for you to achieve exactly that. So now, whenever near ends, you ask yourself, okay, fine. And I usually prefer when people are doing the reviews at an every okay, the government does so at a quarterly. Quarterly in every year. So I would prefer also you engage that kind of a thing. After every 4 months, you sit down with pen and paper, ask yourself, okay, fine, I earn this amount of money, then how much have I managed to salvage in terms of investments? And I say nowadays, you don't have to save money. Get the money directly, channel it towards as an investment. And then later you can buy an asset, whatever you want, until, or when you actually be able to raise that amount of money that you're looking for. So it's always good to ask yourself all those questions. Get your what we call the financial reviews. And this is a point. If you have a car out there and usually do what we call the servicing, after some times you have to do the oil changing and all those kind of things, wheel alignment and what have you, then why not sit down and ask yourself, hey, this car called income, then am I actually doing the reviews and those kind of things? If our government is actually doing the reviews and what have you, at adjusting some areas which are poor, which are appropriate, then why not yourself? So those are the nitty-gritties that you have to incorporate in your life so that at least you can be able to earn or get yourself out of debt if you're already in it. Okay? The fourth one is that you have to have what we call the mind shift. See, I always tell people, that these guys usually have this mentality of, and by the way, this kind of marries the previous point of, okay, of the consumer mindset. The mind shift here, you have ever had kind of a guys who always tell you, hey, the salary that I usually get at the end of the month is not enough, so I have to borrow no matter what. I have to borrow no matter what. That's a very, very awkward, actually, allow me to call it a skewed sort of a perception, because usually believe that what you usually earn is way below that what you actually consume. And I think what you're supposed to understand sometimes may be true, but now what do? What I prefer you doing is that actually get yourself in a situation whereby you can cut down your expenses. If you cut down your expenses, avoid the consumer mindset. Again, mind shift. Mind shift. What do I mean by the mind shift? Understanding what is called the emergency fund, understanding what is a sinking fund, understanding what is to invest, understand savings can never make you wealthy. When you understand all those kind of things, then it actually go ahead and shifts your mindset from a point of, hey, there's some guys who usually have this mind shift of like, hey, our Kenya economy is doing bad, so you justify all your actions. And sometimes, and most of the times, I actually tell, not even sometimes, most of the time, I always tell people, poverty usually starts in our brain before it goes back to our pockets. You know what? Emptiness of our pockets or lack of something in our pockets, it's actually a reflection of what we think, and it's actually, in most cases you find, is usually what we find within our means, because within our mind, because and allow me to explain my point before you crucify me on the comment section. I've ever find of people who are complaining we do not have a job, but these guys are complaining we're drunk, and you ask yourself, then where is that place that they are giving this free alcohol? So the point is this guy, and if you say maybe alikunywa ama the guy consumed like 100 Kenyan shillings or 200 Kenyan shillings, the fact remains that money, if it was to be saved, that will make like 3K or 6K at the end of the month. That's for a fact. So the point is, yeah, I'm not underplaying the fact that actually we are in a situation whereby things are actually, the cost of living is actually skyrocketing. I am not underplaying that, but the fact remains, there is nothing worse than having a skyrocketing cost of living and at the same time you're having a negative mindset. That will actually be very detrimental to your progress. So it is good to make sure the only thing that you can be able to control on this earth, I am telling you, it's only your brain. You cannot be able to control the inflation. You cannot be able to control what the government decides and does. You cannot be able to control. The only thing that you can control, or you ought to control, is only your mindset. If you control your mindset, then that's gonna change a lot of things. I know this one may not augur well with a lot of people and may not be able to get a point, because, hey, I have to admit, even me back then, whenever these people used to talk about, I don't know, poverty starts in our mind before it goes to our pocket, the same applies on the wealth and such. I used to feel like they're not giving me the real things, because I used to think like I was smart and all those kind of things, until I realized, wow, it is true. I have to work on it. All right, let's go to the last one. The second last, the financial literacy. This one I do not have to explain it further, because this is what I've been doing all the way first time I actually started making content. What is financial literacy? Is simply having the money knowledge, is to understand money. And when I say understand money, I'm not saying like a plus, divide, minus and all. No, I mean understanding your numbers, okay? And using those numbers to actually grow yourself and move to the next level. That's like the simplest definition. I ain't gonna borrow the business names to explain this point. In simple terms, financial literacy is understanding different names of the money. Capital, what is capital? What is cash flow? What is asset? I know what is a savings, what is an investment, what is all those kind of, what is passive income, active income. Just understand your money, understand your numbers, understanding your income, your expenses, the difference between the two, living below your means, creating the, investing the difference or the surplus and all those kind of things. Okay, that is actually called the financial literacy. And I know you're asking, where can I get it? Here on Good Joseph's channel. Just stay put, subscribe to this channel so that you never miss any of my good videos in the future. The last one actually is a discount. The sixth one is actually learn the art of negotiation. Never ignore the art of negotiation. At all the time, make sure that at least you learn the art of negotiation. Whenever you negotiate, you always get a discount. That discount you can actually always, and by the way, this is how I do my things. Whenever I'm going to buy something, let's say maybe the sort of a maxed price is like 2,000, and I negotiate myself and get 200 out of the 2,000. I actually make sure that 200 I channel it towards like a money market fund. Whenever I go somewhere and negotiate something, I get something extra, I put it somewhere. That is exactly, you actually negotiate yourself. And you'll be shocked, in a whole month, if you can be able to learn the art of negotiation, how much you'd be able to save at the end of the month. Anyway, guess what? That marks the end of my video, but not me posting a video each and every day. So you ought to subscribe and like this video. Let's move to the next level. Also comment down below and pick the number from the description of this specific video. Let's talk business. For now, it's a goodbye and see you in the next one.